reason to hang out any longer. Welcome, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today as we talk through Playing to Win with District 186 and their journey in getting to a winning referendum. We know that as administrators and folks who have an interest in passing referendum, you don't go to the ballots hoping to lose. And our goal is always to figure out how to get you to win. I don't know if we have any sports fans out there, but I, for one, am extremely excited that we finally got back to having our college basketball again, and baseball season is kicking off. And those folks know that it's not just about showing up to the game to win. You have to show up to practice, and you have to show up for recruiting, and you have to show up for years and years prior to that. And that game plan is really no different than what District 186 did to win. It's all about laying the right groundwork. And so I'm really excited today to get to present to you Jennifer Gill and Todd Cyrulik, who are our team that will be going through this process. Going to have you guys introduce yourselves real quick.
Yes, good afternoon. I am Jennifer Gill, the Superintendent of Schools in Springfield District 186. Just this past week, I started my 8th year as superintendent here, but I've spent a lifetime in District 186 as a student and administrator, teacher before that. So I'm happy today to bring our journey, not only about the school district that I now have the pleasure to lead, but really my community overall and the schools that we need for our future. So thank you for having me.
And thank you for having me. I'm Todd Cyrulik. As Jessica mentioned, one of the lead designers of schools for BLDD Architects. And our role on this was as the consultant throughout the master plan and community engagement process with District 186, really since the very beginning back in 2016. So glad to be here.
Great.
And I'm Jessica Whitlock. I'm going to serve as your moderator today, but I also have had the pleasure of walking through this process with District 186 and Superintendent Gill and Todd, and seeing their community come alive as a part of this. I'm just excited for you to learn about what that process looked like as well. Our playbook today, really, for this getting to win is all about getting together the right group of people over a process that is proven to work over a period of time that may be a little longer than you want it to be, but it really is a pretty simple formula. And it's not easy, though. And so we're bringing you some secrets to go along with that playbook. And this will also guide our content for today as we go through the presentation.
Great.
Well, let's go ahead and kick it off with people, Jennifer.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jessica. And people are the most important piece of this puzzle. One of the things that this process will allow us to do is walk through what we used as before action planning and after action plans for every step of the way as we built our facilities plan. The three groups of people that we focused on greatly will first and foremost our business and our political influencers here in our community. Second, the school board and all of the stakeholders in our district, from parents, staff members, teachers, retired teachers, and also others that have just attended Springfield Public Schools and wanted to give us input on the process. And then last and not least, the residents and the voters. So many times when you think about, we've done the business community, we've done the school district, and all those that work here and live here each and every day, we forget that there are many residents and voters in our community that do not have a touch on a school in a given school year. Perhaps they went to school here, maybe they were from out of town, haven't been in our schools. So we really wanted to lift this process up as a way to inform all residents about our school facilities, what's happening inside our schools, and help them make an informed decision when they went to the voting centers. So to start off with business and political influencers, Springfield is the state capital in Illinois. So we are very politically charged. We have an amazing system of state offices across our community. So all of those are very important to reach out to. We have a large medical community as well. And then just our local businesses that are attached to one another to help build the economy in our community. It was important to me as we came in to understand the perception of the community at large. So that leads us to our secret number one, is make sure that any process that we move forward seeking would to make it their idea and lay the groundwork for that support that we needed in order to ultimately receive the 1 cent sales tax. Now, we do feel that this process would be good for any type of a referendum that you might need to run, if it's a property tax increase or any others that might come up in the future. But we wanted to make sure that we made it their idea. So we were very fortunate to form a relationship with the Chamber of Commerce in Springfield, alongside the Black Chamber of Commerce as also. At the time, we were in the middle of a partnership called the Quantum Growth Q5 initiative that is now evolved into the Springfield Sangamon Economic Council here, but it is our economic driver for the work that we're doing in our community. With the perception out there about, we're worried about your facilities, we think they need some repair, we decided to launch into a partnership with Q5 and the Chamber of Commerce to really understand the perceptions of their members. And the perception at first was that a vast majority of the respondents felt that District 186 facilities were only fair to and actually in poor condition. And 25% believe that that was in turn hurting student learning or having people choose to go to other school systems because they felt like we needed some improvements in that area. So the conclusion that was drawn after the perception survey was concluded was that we wanted to have efficient facilities and create 21st century learning spaces for our students. And we wanted that in turn to equate into better learning outcomes and also better employee satisfaction. So a suggestion from the task force that we created was to create a comprehensive facility study and a long-range plan that would really help us provide those optimal educational experiences. During this time, I had a seat on the board at the Chamber of Commerce, and I was able to grow to be the chair of the board during this process. And that really helped me reach out to the communities, be able to share our story at each meeting, and be able to have small group sessions to dig into the data. They didn't ask me just about facilities. They asked me about advanced placement testing. They asked me about what the test scores meant and what kind of tests our students were taking, and many other questions that related to our educational outcomes. So it was a very comprehensive survey, but this one conclusion is what led us to work alongside BLDD. So we're proud to share our journey today.
What I love about this, Jennifer, is that it isn't just that the chamber and the task force told you what to do. You're bringing them into the loop also resulted in them paying for this study, correct?
Yes, it did.
About the community perceptions of your building?
Yes, they did. They actually helped us with a third-party vendor, Hanover Research, that came in. And that was important too. It wasn't research that was just being done in partnership with them, but being done by a third party, which gave it a little bit of validity as well.
Yeah, really smart strategic move.
Mm-hmm. So secret number 2 is to partner with the school board and listen to influential voices that are in our community and within our school district. During the time that we started this process in 2016 until today, we've had 8 different Board of Education changes. So this work can't be just communicate once and you're done. We had to seek approval to do the survey and the perception survey at the very beginning. After that, we presented the results to the school board in an open meeting format. After we did some initial work with creating our plan, we again met with the school board. And as you know, we're going to talk about a series of community engagement sessions where the board was actively involved. And this communication still occurs today on a regular basis, whether it's on the financial side of things or whether it's bringing them to groundbreakings. All along the way, the school board is a very important partner.
As any of these processes start, very quickly teams need to be formed. And one of the most important moves that Springfield 186 did was really look at building that team from the very beginning, really starting with the RFQ, as opposed to just working with architects, really looking for someone that would lead the process and could be this moderating outside expert that could allow the conversations really to start from the ground level, as opposed to with a deep understanding from the very beginning. This helped in many ways because it also allowed the group to sort of coalesce around this teamwork structure throughout the process allowing you to have fresh voices, but also the decades of experience that was within the Springfield design and consulting community.
Secret number 4 is making sure that we continue to have those business influencers at the table. Their voice was so important on our perception survey and our initial recommendation to do this long-range plan, but we wanted to make sure we had a way to bring them into the conversation in an ongoing way. We ended up creating a facilitation team that had 21 members. It had people from the schools, teacher level, principals, and our local operations and maintenance, but it also included some key business leaders throughout our community, including the president of the Chamber of Commerce, a local electrical firm. We had somebody representing our hospital system and some other large businesses here in town. They're the ones that are bringing in employees to see our schools. They're the ones that are hoping to add on or build or increase their business. But also with the Economic Development Council and Q5, we want to continue to attract new businesses to our community. And we know people always check out the schools as one of their first steps. So it's important to bring those people in and keep them close to the projects as you move throughout them. And the other important piece is to keep talking to them all the time. So that's secret number 5. And what I did was I got out there and made sure that I was spreading the message about the initial projects that we were working on and the initial planning that we were doing to just about every community group I could. So Rotary groups, Kiwanis groups, many other small groups here in Springfield that have asked me to come and speak, the Illinois Women in Leadership Conference, anything I could do to make sure that I was getting in front of different groups of people throughout was very important. And then that also included going to booster meetings and some PTO meetings and things of that nature. So we wanted to engage the business community, engage the larger community, and make sure that we were talking to them regularly and giving reports. This also included a lot of media relations. So my PR and media person that I have on my team was integral. And I have to thank Jessica and BLDD for also being there along our side to help us with those marketing tools and that planning.
Thanks, Jennifer. What the other reason why I felt like this was a great asset for you all was that, the business community generally is not supportive of additional taxes. Mm-hmm. And so this relationship was so strategic in getting that group of folks on board and out supporting it early so that you didn't have the fight against the potential referendum when the time came.
And this included taking some tours of our schools as well. If you're a business community member and you had not gone to the Springfield Public Schools growing up, you may not know what our facilities look like. So we gave tours, we gave more in-depth information to them. All of those things were very important along the way.
One other thing that was really important in this same aspect, I think, is because the business community was so involved at the very beginning, they allowed you to have some permission to actually spend some time and money to really build the plan the right way, which most school districts, struggle with getting over that hurdle. That really sets the tone for the rest of the process. So,
thank you.
With any process like this, it's really important to understand the view from everybody in their seat, especially as a consulting architect and planner on the project. We realized it was very important to keep the local architecture, engineering, and construction teams involved with the process and engaged with the process so they could actually see how this fit into their lives, and really sort of took the competition side away and really created more of a team atmosphere, allowing us all to really work as colleagues, really with almost every entity that had a stake in the outcome of the master plan. And it really was a unique opportunity for us as a team, and I think it yielded great results for the district as well.
And once again, to finish up this topic of the people we needed to engage, District 186 sits in Sangamon County, and within that county, we have 8 school districts. So when we went for the 1 cent sales tax, that's a county-wide tax. So we really needed to work together as a team of superintendents. We have all benefited from the sales tax, and it's exciting to see what projects they're doing. They're excited to see the ones that we're starting to implement, and we're all, liking each other on social media when we have our groundbreakings and different things. But more importantly, it was good for us to have a plan that was countywide, that we weren't working against each other in any way, but coming to the table in a very collaborative manner to make sure that we were working together with one message. It's important that they knew what my goals were and that I knew what theirs were so that we could speak to that when we went out into the community. Oftentimes we have people that work in Springfield but live in neighboring communities, so that cross communication was essential. Their vote wasn't just voting for something inside Springfield that could benefit their business, but it could also then in turn benefit the school district that their students attend from their family. So that was very important. And also, as we move forward, it was important for them to understand about District 186 specifically, because we have about 51% of the vote in terms of the number of constituents that we have in our community. So that was an important piece. They were very patient with me as I did the perception survey, as I built the community engagement so that we could get to the place where putting it on the ballot would be successful. I should tell you, as we go into the next part, 10 years ago, we had an unsuccessful election for a 1% sales tax. So we were coming off a negative outcome, and we wanted to change that vision. So our school board and our district were essential for doing that and bringing that on. Some of the board members that were there for the first failed referendum still remained on the board during this one. And they were a little skeptical, but they were also hopeful at the same lens, because we knew there was no other way we could do the vast amount of the projects that we're going to share with you today without having their engagement and without this 1 cent sales tax. So once again, the secret is making it their idea. So building the permission from them to do the perception survey early on, building the permission for them to partner with somebody and get a consultant to help us with the process. It required us spending some money, but we knew that this process would yield us a positive outcome if we really thought about how we did it. So those were the 2 big things that we had to gain permission from. But once again, it was making sure that they understood that the community was asking for this, the business partners were willing to help us and support us along the way. So it made this part pretty easy. So if you think about secret number 2, it's something for everyone. We wanted to make sure that our projects covered all of our schools. We have about 13,000 students in District 186. We have 33 school sites, 31 schools, and some alternative programming. All of these are integral to our district and important, and they've all been built in different decades, different eras of construction. And the fact of the matter is every school, even if it was one of our newer schools, had something that they needed. So it was about understanding our facilities, making sure we knew what was working, what wasn't working. And we have a rich history in District 186. Our community is based in its historical background of being Abraham Lincoln's home, and many of our buildings are very important historically to our community. So making sure we also understood those aspects as we planned for our future. So one of the things that we wanted to do early on was pull together teams of principals and staff members to work alongside BLDD to really understand the educational space standards that we need to look at in terms of what are industry standards, what do District 186 educators want and need, what do they see as gaps in what we don't have or do have in our schools, and comparing one another. So this is one of our work sessions in our boardroom. It was for principals and their teams to come together from the high schools and middle schools to talk about these space standards. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, Todd?
Yeah, it was really important from the very beginning that you continually get groups of people, some people who really see large need locally as a principal or a staff member at a school, but really get the whole group together not only at the same grade levels, but throughout the district. So everyone could get on the same page and really get beyond what needs fixed, but really what they want, where they want to take things, and really keep that in a positive vein. But it allowed us to work towards some equitable solutions that allowed the master plan to really reflect the future goals of the district as a whole. And it was really exciting to have folks in the room participating, even though they weren't going to be major parts or lead major parts of this master plan when it's done, but they were able to really help folks dream and find those common paths that were going to make the entire district successful.
As I look at that picture, I see key people from my district that were in the technology department, those that are in the department that serves our students with special needs. I see some science teachers and some social studies teachers in those small groups that came with their implementation team from the high schools. All of those were very important as we talked about our space standards and what we wanted to see for our schools in the future. That leads us
to— The outcome of this was that there was a standard across each. So you're saying in elementary, middle, and high school, we said all of our buildings are going to have these types of spaces.
Right. But one thing that came out of it that was a glaring gap was one of our high schools did not have an auditorium. For whatever reason, when it was built in the early 1900s, they did not build a stage with an auditorium. They did have a gymnasium with a stage, but the other two high schools have traditional auditoriums. So when they had a school play or a musical performance or really needed a stage for anything, they had that, and one high school didn't. So that became something that became a very important planning goal for us that came out of these meetings when we looked at basically the word equitable is the word that we used at the forefront of everything that we were doing.
Yeah, it's very, and I was always taken by the sharing at the elementary level about, you know, different programs that were happening to really support every student, and making those available and equitable really became, as Superintendent Gill said, the watchword as we went through this programming to make sure that regardless of who or how the master plan played out in a particular building, at the end of the day, everyone knew the expectations to bring that equity and success to every building.
Exactly. Thank you. Our secret number 3 for working alongside our school board and the district was to make sure we have regular communication, and not only with the board, but with our students and teachers. So even though we had these small group meetings at the beginning, those groups narrowed down, especially when we got into actual school projects. So for instance, the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've been running small group sessions with Lamphere High School teachers. That's one of our big first projects that we're going to do with our high schools. And we've met with every single department to understand the department's needs as we're forming and building the architectural plans. We had the framework from our facilities plan, but now we're narrowing it down. Throughout the whole process from the very beginning, we involved our students in this as well, talking to them at each school, but also I have a student roundtable that also got to see the plans and give input along the way. And we have a foundation for the Springfield Public Schools Foundation that was very integral in giving us some feedback and kind of input as well. And that's not only community members, but alongside our teachers and staff. So the communication plan that you put in place, whatever your structure might be in your community, it's important to think of all of them. If I had a suggestion, I would throw every group that you'd ever want to talk to up on a storyboard, and then just make a plan for how you're going to reach out to all of them in some way, shape, or form. All right, our residents and our voters. Once again, I shared at the beginning that we have to remember that not all of your residents are attached to schools or a fan of a local high school sports team. You need to build this conversation with the residents and the voters in new and unique ways. So if you look at our secret number 1, it's the same that we've had for everybody. Make it their idea. So we started doing this by just having the conversation with them about where we are right now and where we want to go. And we talked to them about the importance of this for our economy, about how when we have great schools and great facilities, that it often will bring businesses. When there's high-ranked schools, we're going to bring in businesses to our community. So it was very important for us to have this conversation. So we opened up our community engagement sessions to any resident in the community that wanted to attend. And secret number 2 is about being brutally honest about our facts, our challenges, and then asking them to input them to help us have a plan for solving them in the future. When I talked about how many schools we had, just in general, I think people didn't know that number if they didn't grow up and weren't raised here. There are schools that we have back in small neighborhoods that unless you just have to drive to them, you don't see them from one of our major thoroughways. So that was very important. We had very hard conversations about, we have 25 different mobile units in our district that were supposed to only be used as temporary units for 1 or 2 years and have now become permanent fixtures that we've actually had to do improvements on and use health, life, safety dollars to improve, put new roofs on, put new borders on, add new lighting, add new carpeting, things of that nature. So we were also very brutally honest about how much money it costs to upkeep old buildings versus what we could do by building new facilities. So we kind of called that the Band-Aid. I'm always doing improvements to my schools, but I'm never seeing the educational standards being met that we dreamed when we had those small group meetings. So that was a very important part. And I just talked to them about when you own a home, about every 20 years or so, you have to put a new roof on, you have to address the windows or address the carpeting or flooring. And we have to do that in our schools as well. So to put money into old buildings that need to be renovated is also not a good use of our taxpayers' dollars. So just to give a little overview of our school district, we have 10 wards in our community that have aldermen that serve on our city council. We have 7 sub-districts that serve on our school board. One of our goals was to make sure that we had community planning meetings for this process. When we started to plan it out, and we'll show you a calendar of how we mapped that out in a few minutes, but we ended up holding 9 different meetings throughout the town, which brought in a diverse crowd. This was very important to us. We wanted to take away the barrier of maybe not having transportation or time in our calendar to drive across town to get to an event. We wanted to make sure that we brought the event to the communities. So we ended up using our 3 high schools as the hub for our events because they are scattered out and in different wards around our community. And this was very successful. Here's a little infographic to show you just how that all laid out. So we had 9 community-wide meetings. We had over 1,000 attendees at these meetings. There were 6 of the facilitation team meetings that I talked about that had 21 members from our business community. And then we also have ward meetings in our community that our city councilmen run. And our aldermen, that when they have their meetings, we went to their ward meetings as a administrative team. We split them up and decided who was going to go to which meeting because some of them were on the same evenings. And we shared our message about our community meetings, inviting people to attend, making sure that they knew they were going on, but also giving them what we call an elevator speech about the need for us to move forward with facility improvements. And that was very successful. And I think it was really cool to work alongside the city of Springfield in this endeavor as well. So
Yes.
once again, something for everybody. Todd, what's that all about?
Well, I think that, as you just described, it's a very complex community in so many ways, whether the way it's divided politically, the way it's divided with high schools. There are just a lot of people that need to be able to see where they fit into that. And the most important thing of any community engagement is to make sure that everyone is invited to the table. And then once they're there, gets to express their needs, because just because it's a good thing for all of Springfield or all of Springfield schools, they may not see how it's helping their children or their neighborhood or their alma mater. So getting those voices to the table was huge. And then actually listening, documenting, and finding a place for everyone. Even the newest buildings had some needs that would bring them up to standard. And being able to communicate that back to people really made the investment level for every constituent rise. And at the end of the day, that's what you need to win at the polls.
That's right.
It's a lot of people to keep in mind throughout the process. I mean, from business to your school board to all of your constituents, and not a small thing to manage. But hopefully, as part of a strong process that fits in there nicely. So, Jennifer, you want to hop in and give us a little overview of how the process worked for you?
Well, I think, you said it earlier, we wanted to have a positive focus. We wanted to make sure that we were not just lamenting that our buildings are older and needing all this work, or that things weren't working as well as we wanted them to in terms of the flow of a student body in a 21st century learning environment. But we wanted to look at the things that are really working well, and then also things that people wanted to see for our preferred future. So we used an appreciative inquiry model. And throughout the 9 engagement sessions, we mapped out what we wanted to ask people each and every meeting, what input we wanted to get, and we wanted to make sure that we were seeking their involvement in making self-determined change at the district level. We wanted to design our preferred future based on the things that we've read about, the things that we know to be true because we live in the buildings each and every day, but also when we've seen other schools that we admire, what were the good things that we wanted to see come to Springfield? So it was kind of an exciting, very energizing, positive process that we put in place. And that leads us to secret number 2. And that's sort of to have a logo, have a plan of the way you're going to roll your process out. So we worked alongside BLDD with my communications team here at District 186, and we designed a logo called Our Schools, Our Future. And it is District 186 plan to meet our preferred future that we want to see. So as we started the process, this is what all of our slides look like. This is what all of our press and PR look like, all of our Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and the things that we were putting out. This is what we designed. I've got a mug that I use each and every day that I carry around. And so those are the things that matter, because people were like, ooh, what is this? Our schools, our future. How can we get involved in that? And it's really continuing as we move throughout. This is one of our pages that we utilize for our PR. My favorite picture on this page is the Springfield High School band as they march down Capitol Avenue. And once again, this is a pride point for our community. The Lanphier Lions basketball team, huge pride point. Not the other two don't, but they won and had several victories the year that we kicked off this campaign. We put in some kind of new playgrounds to meet the health and wellness of students. So you see a picture there of that. And then we wanted to make sure our buildings were open to our communities and our families. So just trying to do our marketing around what schools do you want for your future that are going to meet the needs of all students. So the secret that we put in place here was voice and choice. And it was something that was really fun to develop. We had our theme of each meeting that was based on the appreciative inquiry model. But we also had these community meetings where we wanted to hear people. We didn't want to just talk to them, but we wanted to hear their voice. So when we had these community sessions, there was just about a 10 to 15 minute session where we gave facts about the problem that we were looking at each meeting, or the question that we had at each meeting. When we put the tables together, as people entered the room, we actually gave them a number and asked them to sit at a table of that number. They may have come with 2 or 3 people from their own school or their own community, but we wanted to spread them out and have them with different people so that they could talk with one another and share, hey, at my school, it looks like this, or at this school, it looks different. And then hear the questions of our community. So that was a very important piece, but we also wanted to give them choices and an ability to leave us with comments. So Todd, could you explain a little bit about how we did the feedback sheets at each event?
Sure. One of the most important things when you get a great group of people together like we were blessed with is to make sure you really record what they're thinking, and also begin to train them from the very beginning that finding agreements is really the goal of the meeting. Not necessarily finding things you don't agree about. So each table would have pretty spirited discussions about whatever the topic was for the different meetings. But at the end of the time period, everyone is challenged to, at the table, come to consensus points, record them, and then report them out to the entire meeting. And number one, it gave us a great record of some, all the conversations happening. When you've got that many people, it's impossible to listen in at every table at every moment. But more importantly, it really got the group to begin to work as a team, even though, as you mentioned, they didn't come as a team. They formed in those meetings, and just a great thing. And it allowed us as a team to have all that great data, mine it, and then share it back to the community in a very transparent way, which goes a long way to build trust.
A lot of times when we talk about voice, one of the things that is a concern on behalf of superintendents, which I can understand this, is that it's going to turn into a crazy kind of place where people just stand up and want to voice what they're frustrated with. Did you find this happen at all in these meetings, Jennifer?
We really didn't, but there was an occasional person that would pull me aside and talk to me about something unrelated to facilities, of course, when you put yourself out there like that. But we really didn't hear that about facilities. And nobody ever got, out of control or angry, because we really had a process that brought people into the room in a welcoming setting. We made sure that they had an opportunity to voice their concerns, leave feedback for us so that we could take their feedback and use it in future planning. But each table then had a process where they did present out. And if one thing did come up, it was somebody that was sharing out information from their table. And I think they felt safe in having that conversation. So this is Lanphier High School, one of our events that we had. You can see this is only about half of the room that you see here. So they were quite well attended. And it was an exciting way to delve into some pretty hard conversations. But the feedback that we got helped us build our next session each time. So we were able to answer people's questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has that added benefit for sure.
Yes.
I think one of the things that's really unique about the process that we went through with Springfield 186 is just the amount of time they were willing to dedicate to get to the right solutions. Having been through other processes, the challenge is great engaged administrators have this curse of understanding of all the things that need to be addressed. And the great challenge of any community engagement is to take the time to get the community to that same level of understanding, at least a level of understanding where they can make wise choices. And so, as you can see, we had a 9-meeting process that took the better part of a year to work through both semesters. And as Superintendent Gill mentioned, one of the most important things is to give some people good information, listen to them, and then the next meeting build upon that new understanding and answer those questions in a public way.
Todd, if you were a smaller school district with, maybe fewer than 30 buildings, like Jennifer had more than 30 buildings at 186, do you see a process this long as being appropriate or needed?
It really has to do with the challenge that any district has. If you've got some real divisive issues, maybe you're a small school and you have too many buildings, you may still need a very long process. If you have some fairly straightforward answers and a successful track record in engaging your community, it may be 1 or 2 meetings where you're really just building on other things. But took a lot of time with the district and their deep understanding of their community and what it was going to take to really educate people and get them engaged in solving the challenge with a really good plan.
And one thing that I would like to say is we did this on purpose so that we could spread this conversation out against kind of each sector of our town. But if you look at meeting number 1, we went on the tour just to give a state of the district, and we went to all 3 high schools and did that so their constituents could attend and all of our feeder schools could attend that live in that area of town. Then we started to spread out the message. And each time we had a different message, but we went to a different high school, and you can see that outlined. The other thing I wanted to share was, I mean, we are living in the world of COVID-19 and the pandemic. We didn't really have the option or the tools to do this virtually at all. Some of these meetings, or part of them, or all of them, could be done virtually if you need to. I'm always a firm proponent that, you know, being in person and building those relationships and having those side conversations with people is very essential. But as we live in this world that we live in today, I can see this process being able to be done virtually or in part virtually. So that's a good thing. But I just want to give a shout out to you all for helping us design this engagement process. BLDD was alongside us in each step of the way in the planning, helping prepare materials. But more importantly, they helped take those documents that we just shared with you for the voice and choice and compile the results and synthesize the results and bring them back to us at our next planning session so that we could make great decisions. I can't tell you enough how much that meant to us to be freed of that time to compile all of those things. I did have a team on my end that I put together that was a planning and implementation team for this process, people that could help meet and greet people at the door as they came into the sessions, people who could put things and post things up on our website. You know, obviously I have a PR and media director that helped get the word out through social media, but the backbone of the work and helping us with the educational standards and some of the other programs you're going to share with us on the next slides were very beneficial. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Pleasure. Yeah, that brings the probably the greatest challenge that a community engagement that's really authentic and actually seeks those voices and wants to provide those choices means you're going to have more ideas than you need. And the great thing about that is if you've got a program that allows people to really work through and not only see their idea, but see where their idea lands against others, it really allows the group to coalesce around the best ideas and really to choose the best future for the school district. And we saw that in this case. I think we went with over 30 different variations on a theme, down to 2 or 3 that were really, really strong. The challenge at that point is when you've got 3 good ideas, how do you know which one's the best idea? And we've been doing this for several decades now, and we realize that is really one of the greatest challenges to a program like this is how do you get beyond making either a gut decision or a strictly dollar driven decision. And so we built a software a number of years ago that allows you to take all of this information, whether it's people's ideas, whether it's faculty goals for how to teach and how you want students to obtain knowledge, as well as all the dollars and cents that go into not only building, but owning and maintaining buildings. So taking those 2 coins together, we built Clio, and Clio allows you to look at the true cost of ownership through life cycle cost and look at any building or any group of buildings for how well they're going to function meeting your educational goals. But the beauty of it is it really brings those 2 components together for the first time in a comparative cost benefit ratio that allows you to look at, in this case, I think it was 3 great ideas, and really find the one that was going to serve the district the best with the money that they had to invest. And at the end of the day, everyone coalesced around a really strong idea, and that's how you move forward with a community.
Exactly. Well, we felt like taking our theme to the next level was very important after we finished this process. We came up with 3 key vision statements that would really guide our work into the future. The first being a future-focused learning environment to support the success for students, having the smartest use of our district's time and plan and financial resources, and then also placing our community in a place where they felt like they were comfortable in coming in and using our facilities and having facilities that they were proud of. With those 3 vision statements, we felt like we were going to have a very strong way to communicate our work as we move forward. And we also want to communicate our 5 main planning principles so that people understand that the plan that we put together, we really did think through all angles of the spaces that we want to see in our preferred future. So first and foremost, equitable. We wanted all of our buildings, no matter where you attend schools, to be equitable, have auditoriums, media centers, science labs, kitchen and cafeteria spaces that were appropriate, and as well as athletic spaces, which are very important when you talk about any type of facility planning. Athletics always gets a larger chunk of the time, for sure. Student-centered, we wanted to make sure that it really held up to 21st century learning standards, from anywhere from how we use space for learning to what kind of furniture we have to access to technology, which in this past year has become very, very important, making sure that we have good Wi-Fi, internet access, hotspot, areas, all of those things. Safe and secure was very important in our conversations. I think Todd mentioned earlier that some of our work has been around putting more cameras in our schools and having safe and secure entrances in every school. But this year, the word safe has become something new to us. It's become about the health and wellness of our students too, and being able to do those health checks as students enter the building and making sure that we have the right HVAC systems in place and that we have the right airflow. Up-to-date infrastructure, making sure that our electrical lighting, that we have outlets for all those technologies, again, all of the wiring for great internet access, and also a way to have distance learning opportunities, which we know, again, through the pandemic, our world of Zoom and video conferencing has become essential. So we want to have those things in place for our new buildings as they are improved. And last but not least, one of our main commitments in District 186 is to have a welcoming environment in every encounter that you have, whether it's just walking in and how you're greeted is one thing, but it's also about having beautiful aesthetics and exciting and inviting exterior and interior, and making sure that we have our school pride on display in every single one of our schools.
Some really powerful outcomes that are definitely guiding you, both through the referendum and moving forward with the projects as they come to life.
Exactly.
Well, and that's the joy of having this be people focused, right?
Right.
If you start with people in mind, it's not about the buildings. It's as much about the people as anything else.
Well, that's right. And, you mentioned earlier that this was a long process. It was. And I think as the other superintendents that had smaller school districts around me waited for us to get through our planning and engagement before we could put this on the ballot in November of 2018, it seemed like forever. It was almost 2 full years. But that's the right reason we did it, to build the work that we needed to do to make sure we had a successful outcome.
Right. And did your board, did you feel like that was a primary directive from them, right? That you were able to make that your top priority?
It was one of my goals, that the board sets goals for the superintendent, and making sure that we addressed our facility needs was one of the top goals as I came in 7 years ago. So it was something that they gave me permission to do this along the way to make sure that we had the right, things in place, the right input delivered, and it made it easy for them to allow us to put this on the ballot and take our time to build the steps that we needed beforehand.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most amazing thing when folks look at the story and they realize that it started way back in 2016, really with those kind of first steps and outreach, two-way conversation with business leaders. And the exciting thing was that it had the time really to play out and bring people along. So many times that's the great challenge is you feel, if the community feels rushed while you feel you're on the right path, you don't get everyone to the finish line at the same time. And in this case, the finish line was November of 2018.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you look at this plan of create, get things approved, you find funding for the plan, then you implement it. That's all very exciting. And we are over to the implementation side of this now, and it couldn't feel better. But just to kind of give you a little human side of this was pretty stressful on the superintendent. If it failed after all of this work, I struggled with how I'm going to wake up the next day and just go back into work, because I had put so much of my energy and time alongside my normal day-to-day instructional improvement activities, that it was a big deal to me. And I have a wonderful husband at home that said, okay, this is happening in November of 2018. I'm going to take you to see a concert. That's one of the things that we do together. Of course, we've missed that greatly in the last year. But there was a band playing in St. Louis that we were familiar with, and it was in a small venue. He said, I don't even want to be here in town. I just want to let things happen. What will be, will be. Once we find out the results, we'll take the next step. And so the band has a great song called Strength. And some of the lyrics of it are, give me hope, give me strength, give me something to live for. And so this actually, the victory that we had at the end of the evening, right when the band was coming on stage, is when I found out via my phone that I had attached to my hand that we had been successful. And it was a great feeling. So this is the result of our election. In 2010, when we had a failure, we failed 56% to 44%. Because of this process, we were able to flip those results and win with 53% of the votes. And that raised our taxes in our community to 0.975 sales tax. That's a high sales tax in any community. But our community came out and they supported it, and we had a victory. And once again, it wasn't just a victory for me, but it was a victory for all 8 school districts. So Todd, here's our 34 projects for you.
Yeah. So yeah, the exciting part after that election victory, it was really turning what was really an idea and a great list of work to do into the projects that will realize these aspirations. And it turned into, there were 34 separate projects. Those were bundled into packages. And as we talked about earlier, one of the commitments was there were going to be a lot of people who were already invested that would become the people to deliver those projects. I believe 8 or 9 local architects leading the process, along with various engineers and architects as part of teams. And then the construction community has already begun the hard work of actually constructing the first of these projects, with many more to come.
And we did sign a PLA with all of our local labor unions too. And I believe that, we had the RFQ for our engineering and construction firms, and we had 8 of them that were on the list, and they've all received projects, all from either Springfield or Central Illinois. So we're happy to bring that work to our community and improve our economy in that way by getting people back to work. Here's our first groundbreaking that we just had this spring on one of our actual additions. Each of those projects that you showed, we were able to label them either as health, life, safety projects, new addition projects, or kind of complete replacement or new construction projects. And that was a good way to show the community that it's all there on our website and what's to come. This was exciting to bring the kids out and have our community members there and our school board there, and say a few words about thanking our community for giving us permission to venture out and start our preferred future for facilities. So it's been exciting. So in conclusion, you have to think about the people. You have to plan the process carefully that's right for your community. And to Jessica's point, it may look different in your community and what you need. And I think that's the important thing, is to, as a superintendent, don't be afraid to voice your opinion about what you think is right for your community and what you need. But this process brings every stakeholder to the table, and it gives you the opportunity to take the time to get where you need to go.
All right, very good. Thank you so much. That time piece is so important. That 2-year window prior to, you think you can kind of just start things 6 months in advance and it'll pop up there. Mm-hmm. But that 2-year window prior to the election was an important one for sure. Well, that is the end of our content. We just want to thank everybody for being here today. If you have any questions, I would encourage you to submit those via the chat window. We're happy to stick around and answer any questions that you might have come up with over the course of the last hour. looks like we have one maybe that was, we might have talked about this a little bit, but how would you change that process for a smaller school district? So we kind of talked about that, but let's dive into that just a little bit more, Todd.
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, it really is a customized process to solve the problem that is on the minds of your community. I think the thing that we like to start with is sort of, what is your track record? Has it been a long time since you've done major things, or do you have a pretty regular process and two-way conversation with your community? From there, the answers to that question usually will start us down the path of what's the right mix. Sometimes it's show them the challenge, ask them about the future, and give them some really good ideas. And that other times you really need to start with the ground, from the ground floor, and really build that plan. I think the other big things to think about is there sort of a sacred cow or something that locally means a lot to a large constituent, and you're going to have to understand how to delicately either improve that situation or deal with that situation. But typically, 9 is about the most. You can't keep everyone's attention for much more than a year. But as you saw here, I think the most important thing was the groundwork that was before the actual community was meeting, that had to uncover the challenges that the plan was actually designed to address with the community. So that's really the part that decides it all, is understanding your community and your school district and what they need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well,
Okay.
I just appreciated all of our open conversations about what I needed. You wouldn't have forced something on me that I didn't think was the right thing to have. So, I think it's just making sure that you give each topic about your kind of where you are right now, what you want to do, and then give some time to what people want to see for their preferred future.
Mm-hmm.
I think going back to the to sum it up is really the you are playing to win, and understanding what it's going to take. It's no different than that team that starts every year and knows they have to be in condition, and then they have to stay focused and manage whatever the season's going to throw at them. And that's, at the end of the day, you've got to have that win, or it was all for naught.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. Well, I don't see anything else on here. Is there anything else that anybody wants to share before we call it a day?
No.
All right.
I just want to tell you how excited we are to be part of realizing it. And it's been a wonderful ride for the last few years with your team. So thank you for your patience and faith and leadership through all of this. So.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Happy to answer any questions. I think, Jessica, were you going to share some ways that they could see some of the results of our work and maybe any way to reach out?
Yep, I'll go ahead and send that information out. And that way, if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask directly of Jennifer, Todd, or myself, or find out more, we'll send that to you.
All right.
Good. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.